Hi guys, thanks so much for joining. So the first thing that I want to do is give some context on what we're doing here and why we're having this conversation. So the first one is the idea of this meeting is to talk about these performance indicator pages. Here's an example of the engineering performance indicator page. Currently what I'm doing is I'm updating this section down here, which is how to update pages that look like this. And so you'll see here pages like this page that I'm demoing right here. How it's rendered in ERB, and understanding the Ruby and HTML code behind this. So again, the idea is that every department, what we're trying to do for every department and division is move all the PIs from any of the other handbook pages to one page for each division. Specifically for the engineering division, we're also going to do it by department, but every other division for now is just going to be on a division level. And the idea is to really help them aggregate or put all of their performance indicators in one place, denote which ones are key, how to do that, as well as how to update the maturity and health. Any questions so far on the context? Okay, awesome. And so these are the changes I'm currently making to this section of this page. The reason I'm putting this information here is so that you guys can always come back here to reference how to update this page. And I'll try to keep this as current as I can. If you see that anything is out of date, please feel free also to update. But I'm going to go through this in a bit. The first thing I'm going to do is pull up the code that we're going to look at and compare against. Give me a second to pull that up. So the first thing is that this page here, what we see here at first is the high-level summaries of all the KPIs, then the performance indicators that are, as well as the individual information about each of these KPIs. So if I, for example, I click on this section, it'll take me down to the specific KPI definition information. After we review over the KPIs, then we get to the regular performance indicators. So these are ones that are denoted as not key. And then finally, in the next section here, we have this other PI pages. So these are all the pages that currently operate with this format. So you'll see here for the engineering department, all of their divisions has their own page, and you're seeing even within the development, they're going to start doing this by sections as well. And then for here, we have corporate finance. One thing that we might want to consider for finance is having, similar to engineering, it might be corporate finance, and then maybe a bullet point for the finance team KPIs. For people, it'll be the same idea. It'll be the people performance indicators, and then the recruiting performance indicators will be a sub-level underneath that. Any questions about this so far, about all the PI pages that are in this current format? Okay, so as you can see here, we're missing a lot of pages. So for example, we don't have product performance indicators. We don't have product strategy performance indicators or marketing. And so the idea is to get everything in this format so that when there are key review meetings, they can actually come to this page and actually have conversations from here. So for example, someone might want to talk specifically about team member retention, being able to come directly to this page, see all the KPIs in one place, and then discuss through it. So what's our target? What does the chart or URL look for? How's the data currently represented? And then understanding the health of how this data is tracking against that target. In my opinion, I believe that the health should be updated by the business DRI, because they will know how they want to view that data the best, if that makes sense. They'll also understand from their perspective what are action items they plan to take to make sure that their KPI reaches the target or stays on target. And so this section, we may need to assist our business stakeholders in updating. Any questions so far?
Yep, I have a question, Kat.
Yep.
Towards the bottom there, those other links, is the idea that those link to like finance KPIs or people KPIs, or those like engineering stuff related to those? That's a little confusing to me, those bottom links like that.
That's a great question. So yes, so the idea is that yes, we will list all divisions here. Then if they want to split by departments, you will also see the department splits. And as you can see here, there will probably be section splits as well.
So they can just pivot to another division quickly. Is that the idea? Like cross-linking?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. So I'll share what this looks like. So I'm going to actually split screen here. And I'm going to share with you the page that actually is a template that formats everything to look the same. So this is the template that we use to populate all pages to look this way. So if you remember, there's the executive summary section, there's the key performance indicator section, there's the performance indicator section, there's the other PI section, and then there's the legend, health, and then this bottom part right here, how to work with pages like this. That's this part right here. And so what I've done is I've actually explained each part of this. So here, pages like this page here are rendered by an ERB. So this is a link to a Wikipedia page that explains a little bit more about Ruby code. In this, it's Ruby code and HTML code. And you can tell because at the end of this file, it actually has html.erb. Any file that doesn't have HTML in it and it's just .erb means that it does not have the HTML language. This one specifically does. And so you'll see that all of these pages are populated using this template. And then what I'm going to do is go through each one of them. So I'll say here, any changes to the performance indicator ERB template will cascade to all links underneath this section. So again, if we make any changes to this one file, it will cascade to all the files here. And you can also click on this. I've made it so that's linkable, so then you know exactly how to get back to this one page or this template. Any questions about how to find this template at this time? Okay, the next one is to update the options for maturity. That is actually a separate file, so I've linked that here too. So this is a file. So that link did not take as well as I thought it would, but I can also find it here. So let me find this for you. I will check that link in a bit. But this is what that looks like. So this is that table for maturities. And it basically what it does is it checks based on your maturity level, 0 to 3, why is it not mature enough? Is it that it's missing a description, target, and an embed? Is it missing a description, target, or embed? One of them, two of them, all of them. That's how the maturity scale works. This is actually, these numbers are actually automatically calculated by the system. And I actually explain that here. There's a helper function that chooses the level of the maturity based on whether or not it finds any values put into description, any values put into target, or the size sense embed property. So that is how to make changes to the maturity table here. And again, I'm going to show you on this this template. This is the main template. You'll see here for maturity that this section here, this table here, is populated by this helper function here. I mean, using that file here, for that ERB file. Whereas health here is, they explicitly write it out here. So health is a manual thing. You will have to update that manually for each KPI, but the maturity is one that is actually automated. And so this part right here just populates these two tables on every single page that looks like this. If you want to make changes to how the way that each KPI is individually displayed, so you can make changes to this file here. Okay, so I'll fix these links, but they're not shown correctly. So this one is for making changes to files for how a KPI is listed. So this is this file here. So it ends with a performance indicator list. In this file, you'll see here what it says is for each KPI, show the KPI name, then the target, and then the size sense data if it exists, and put the little icons on it as well. So this one is the one that populates the KPI index page. So when I get down to engineering KPIs, this is how all of these little icons are automated. And so if you read here, what it says is for each KPI, list out the name, list out the target. So that's a name, that's a target. And then after the target, put one of these emojis on. So if it has the size sense underscore data property, make sure that the chart icon is clickable and will take you to a Periscope link. If it is a URL property, make sure to show the link icon and choose the first URL that is in that list of URLs that is provided. Otherwise, put a chicken icon. And so you'll see here for each one of these, if I click on this link, it will take me to the first link that was associated with this KPI. And then if I click on the chart here, it'll take me directly to that chart. And so this code powers exactly this page, the KPI index page. Any questions so far about this? Okay. I'm going to keep going. So the next one is making changes to this file for any properties or format. So I'm seeing down there, it's the performance underscore indicator ERB file. So I'm going to go ahead and open that and show that on the side. So here you'll see what it does is this parses each one of the performance indicators out. So it's saying if in the performance indicator file, and so I'm going to pull up the performance indicator file on this side. If on the performance indicator file, there's a parent property. So I'm going to control F here and property, parent. So in this case, this has the parent property. What it says is show this language. This is a subset of the existing KPI. Please refer to the parent KPI definition. So you'll see here for the development hiring actual plan, the parent KPI is actually the engineering hiring actual versus plan. So how does this show up? So this shows up if we go to development department KPIs, and I go down to the development hiring actual versus plan, you'll see this language. This is a subset of the existing KPI. See this definition. And if I click on this link, it will take me to the engineering one. And so this is this code here. And so for every property that is denoted on this file, so you'll see this is how it indicates it. So this is the data file, the first element or property that they're looking for, and how they'll populate information based on that. The definition, it's saying, hey, this is using an expression. So it's saying, hey, if you find a performance indicator that has a definition, please just populate that definition in. That's what the equal sign says. It's saying for this variable, please populate the value for it. So in this case, it would look into this performance indicator file, look at the definition fields, and then populate this value in. And then down here, target, same idea. It's saying target, make sure that you use the target, taking this value and displaying that. And that is what these are. There are other special ones. So what I've done in this page down here is explain each of the properties that you could technically have, each of the elements out here. So you'll see there's a name, there's a base path, a parent, target, org, is key. And I've also listed what is required when a KPI is added versus what is optional. Any questions about any of these so far?
Yep, I have a question, Kat. So it
Yep.
sounds like you're describing a bunch of functions that you can use, like dry coding, so you don't have to manually keep up with stuff or kind of repeat yourself.
Yep.
But how like on the engineering page, how does it know in the beginning for to look for engineering stuff in those files? How does the function know that on the engineering page?
That's a great question. So I'm going to scroll up to this helper function section, so you can read through this in your time. But essentially what happens is, and I'll go back to that file. So this is a template, correct?
Yep.
So in this template, and this is a great question. Here, what it does is it says, hey, for all the key KPIs, could you please pull them in? Please look at the performance indicator file. And specifically within that file, I want to find all the KPIs. How does it know to do that versus these RPIs? Is they actually use a function called, I think it's this one here, the performance indicator org function, which takes into the string argument for organization. And all this means is either the department or division level, and it returns two lists, a list of all the KPIs, which is this one, or a list of all the PIs, which is this one. And so I'm going to go now to the helper functions. I'm going to pull this down here. So let me pull, again, go down to that one that I was talking about. So we're talking about the performance indicators org. So here for performance indicator org, you'll see here, it starts by saying, hey, I want to create two lists, one for the KPIs and one for the KPIs. For the data file, and what this means is please go to the, oh, sorry, let me not do it that way. Go to this, do you see how this starts with data here? So it's saying, please pick up from data, the performance indicator file. So this is the performance indicator YAML file. And for that file, select, so very similar to SQL, right? Select wherever the PI, for every PI, so this means for every PI, check if that PI matches with the organization. So if I pass in a value of development, what it's gonna do is go through this file and look for wherever there's an org and look for wherever the file says development and pick up this value. And then that's how it chooses whether or not it is going to be a list that they do for each of the PIs. So you'll see here, it'll add onto that KPI list. If the is key Boolean flag is true, well, it'll go to the KPIs. And if it is false, this else statement here, it'll push it to the RPIs, which is here. This RPIs populates the regular performance indicators, and the KPIs does the key performance indicators. Great question. Anyone else? As well as Israel, please continue to ask these questions. And then what it does is it continues to go forward. So you'll see that in here, it references this file as well. It's saying, make sure that in this one, pass back in these local variables. And so you'll see it passes in the KPIs and the RPIs, and that's where this partial picks it back up. And it'll say, hey, for these, for each of the KPIs in this list, go through it and apply this file to it, which is a performance underscore indicators, which goes back to this file here, the performance indicator file here. And for each of those KPIs, it will go through this list and populate it that way. And this is the logic for how it chooses to display if it has a shared dashboard, a chart, or a link. Any other questions? Would it be helpful if I walk through each of these functions here?
Yeah, like maybe on the engineering one, just how like maybe one section gets populated with engineering data.
Okay, great question.
Data versus
so let's go through this page. Yep. So for this section here, this executive summary, let's go through this section first. So here on this page, it says for the executive summary, please make sure there's a table. And this is actually an HTML table format. So it says put KPI, maturity, health, and reason. And then for each of the KPI, within each row, so the TD is each row, put the KPI name, put the maturity level of the KPI, the health level, and the reason. And so let's say, take this one for example. It's saying for the name, it's just going to pick up that name. So it's just going to pass back in once we've defined those KPIs. It's going to use this file to populate the name.
So where's it defined there? Where's it defined that it's engineering? I'm not seeing anything there that would say it's engineering.
Exactly. That's a great question. So I would say for this part here, the key performance indicator .each.do. Let me see where it is here.
Because I'll be,
yeah, I think this actually calls back. It must be somehow that this is generated as well using this down here, because this is the local variables. Okay. And so because this is the local variables on this file, it must be somehow helping it to know that whenever it's a KPI, this is why it's able to reference it as a KPI here.
Okay.
So let's start with something like this. Would it be more helpful if I, so if we jump into this one here, we're now looking at a specific KPI, right?
Mm-hmm.
So here, what it's saying is, as I mentioned in the other helper function, what this does is it creates two lists, one for KPI and one for RPI, and it pushes it back to this file here, partial dot, and this is this file here. So what it does is it kind of basically calls another version or instance of this file, and when it opens this file, it passes in the KPIs and the RPIs, I think. And so then it's able to go through this. And then the idea is that it says for each of the KPIs, now use this file to populate each one of them. So for this one, this is the performance indicators, which is this one right here, performance indicator. And so what this does is for each of these KPIs, for the name, you see how this is the header 3 format. That's the header 3 format. Then what it says is if there's a parent value, populate it. In this case, there is no parent value here, but in this one, there is a parent value. So you see this line here. For the definition, it just populates the definition. Same here, it just populates the definition right underneath. The target, so you'll see here, target dot dot that value. So target dot dot that value. If it's public, it'll display that it can be. If it's false, then it will show this line. I think there's a good one, which is infrastructure. So I can go to infrastructure and find that one. KPI, I think it's this one. So you'll see this. And that comes from this line here. So I would say the population of each of these like KPI or PI sections comes directly from this one file. And then here for each of the URLs, what it does is it parses it. So for each of the URLs, it makes it a clickable link. And that's what this part does. Then if it has a sisense chart, depending on the chart, if it has a shared dashboard or not, it will display a different link or it'll show the chart. And this is how we sign that chart.
Question is,
yep.
The performance indicator file then just one file for everything, and then it's able to detect which engineering, whether it's engineering or not. Okay, so really it's anything that needs to be updated is updated in the performance indicator file. Okay.
Exactly. So you would actually put, if you're just adding a new KPI, you would just edit this. Like for the most part, you guys will not need to make changes to any of these files here.
Cool. Okay.
Yep. You guys will mostly be making changes here. I will say that there is an issue outstanding to split this file to multiple files by department and by division to avoid merge conflicts. But the idea is that if you put in all these values, it should auto-populate on that page. The only other thing you need to do when you're, for example, any department that is not covered under this section here. So if the page does not exist yet, which you can figure out using this, is you're actually going to have to add it here as well. So for example, so that is this links. I'm gonna actually open this file up here and show you. So this is actually what populates this section here. And this is also defined down here. So I say, when you're adding a new PI page, make sure to include in this file, and this file is this links file. I will say that the file has to first be created in the division first. So you'll see, for example, here for finance, we actually created it in the finance directory. So that page has to be standing by itself first, and then you would list it here. And then that page, it uses this template here. So why don't we, for example, go to this page here, this finance, corporate finance performance indicator page. So if I go to handbook, and then I want to go to finance, and then I want to go to corporate finance.
You can't see it, Kat. It's not on the screen.
Sorry. So here, so I'm in source, I'm in finance, handbook, I'm in finance, and now I'm looking for the corporate finance performance indicators. So that's this right here. So you'll have to create this file first. And once you create that file, it'll be in index.html, and you'll see it's just this. And this is where we pass it in on the first time, where we call that first function and we pass in the org. So in this case, it's a corporate finance org. And so what it does is it then looks at this file and it looks for anywhere it says corporate finance. So I would say if you had to create a brand new page, what you would have to do at first is in the directory, create a page for it. It would look similar to this format. And then after you create this page, you would add all the KPIs to this file or to the split version if and when we have that. And then that should do everything for you. Oh, and sorry, and list it here. So 3 things. I can definitely enhance this part here to explain those 3 steps. But it's really just 3 steps that you have to do. The rest, these helper functions will automatically do it. You won't have to worry about it. But if you're curious, this is how to read and understand each of these functions. We do have 2 minutes left. Any questions here? I would also say that if you start doing this and you have questions, feel free to comment in the issue or let me know and we can work on it together. So I'm going to stop sharing at this time and turn off recording. Thank you.